In our headlines on this Wednesday, July 23rd, here in South Korea. Today we count down 100 days to the start of this year's APEC Leaders Summit in the city of Gyeongju, and Prime Minister Kim Min-seok has reaffirmed Korea's commitment to a successful hosting. The Trump administration's tariff on Japanese imports into the American market has been lowered to 15%, and Tokyo has reportedly agreed to import American rice. Now, this is according to Trump himself on social media. Meanwhile, at least 23 people have lost their lives to last week's torrential rain, and authorities here believe the death toll may continue to rise as search operations for the missing continue. South Korea is hosting this year's APEC Forum, and with 100 days left to the start of the summit, Prime Minister Kim Min-seok chaired a related meeting to check on the preparations thus far. Our Song Yoo-jin reports.
Tens of thousands of people, delegates, including world leaders, CEOs, and journalists, will gather in the South Korean city of Gyeongju this fall for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, Leaders Meeting. With 100 days to go, new Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, the head of the event's preparation committee, chaired a meeting on Wednesday to review preparations and progress.
Just as the 1988 Seoul Olympics changed Korea's global standing, this year's APEC carries even greater historic weight. It's a chance to re-establish Korea's place in the world after last year's political turmoil. We must aim for an unprecedented APEC that exceeds expectations across diplomacy, venues, accommodations, programming, and service.
Member states will discuss digital innovation and regional connectivity at the two-day leaders meeting from October 31st to November 1st. Eyes are on who will attend in person, especially U.S. President Donald Trump, China's Xi Jinping, and Russia's Vladimir Putin.
From transport and logistics to medical services, all government agencies will work as one so that there are no gaps in the preparation. Specific programs will be finalized by August, infrastructure completed by September, and rehearsals conducted in October so that we're fully ready by October 31st.
And the APEC CEO Summit will bring together world leaders and prominent business figures for meaningful dialogue.
We're focusing on next-generation AI chips, digital transformation, and e-commerce. We plan to host 77 speakers, 17 heads of state, and 60 top-tier figures over 19 hours of programming. It will be the longest CEO summit in APEC history.
Wednesday's meeting was broadcast live, part of the government's effort to ignite public interest.
We encourage you to visit Gyeongju, learn more about our history, and follow our APEC preparations. We'll open new dialogue and feedback channels with the public.
This will be the first summit-level multilateral event held in South Korea under President Lee Jae-myung, which means it could serve as a test of his administration's diplomatic strategy. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
In related news, K-pop artist G-Dragon has been appointed honorary ambassador of this year's APEC summit in the Korean city of Gyeongju. The appointment was announced by Prime Minister Kim Min-seok on social media, where he called G-Dragon an artist who represents South Korea. He added the singer continues to show passion and creativity through his artistic endeavors, including his recent transmission of music into space. Officials also believe his appointment will draw greater global attention to the upcoming multilateral meeting. The Trump administration's tariff on Japanese imports into the American market has been lowered to 15%, and Tokyo has reportedly agreed to import American rice. Our Lee Seung-jae has details.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Tuesday that Washington will impose a 15% tariff on goods from Japan. In a social media post, the U.S. leader touted what he called a massive deal that would also see Japan invest $550 billion into the U.S., adding that the U.S. would receive 90% of the profits. Trump also noted that Japan will open trade to cars and trucks, rice, and certain other agricultural products. Trump also announced on Tuesday that the U.S. will charge a 19% tariff on goods from the Philippines. The figure is a percentage point lower than what was announced in April. The announcement was made in a social media post, with Trump saying that Washington had reached a deal with Manila after holding talks with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at the White House. In exchange, the U.S. will see zero tariffs on goods going to the Southeast Asian nation. Meanwhile, the U.S. has agreed to lower the tariff imposed on Indonesia from 32% to 19%. The U.S. will see virtually no tax on all American goods shipped to Indonesia. The U.S. will also be exempt from most regulations on automobiles, agricultural products, and pharmaceuticals exports to the Southeast Asian nation. According to a senior Trump administration official, Indonesia will reduce tariffs to 0% on over 99% of the products from the U.S. and eliminate all non-tariff barriers. With the U.S. and China still trying to strike a trade deal, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced Tuesday that a third round of trade talks with Beijing is scheduled for next week in Sweden. Speaking to Fox Business, Bessent said that he will be in Stockholm from July 28th to 29th with his Chinese counterparts, adding that they'll be working out what is likely an extension. With Seoul also working to strike a deal with Washington before the August 1st deadline, South Korea's Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul said Tuesday that he would hold so-called 2+2 high-level trade talks with the U.S. on Friday. Koo said he and Trade Minister Yohan-gu will head to Washington for the talks, involving Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Without a trade deal, South Korea is set to face 25% tariffs on all goods entering the U.S. 이승재, Arirang News.
Seeking exemptions from product-specific U.S. tariffs will be, quote, very challenging. Now, this is according to Stephen Vaughn, former acting U.S. trade representative, while addressing members of the Korean media in Washington on Tuesday, local time. South Korea has been pressing for exemptions on products such as steel, which faces a 50% tariff, and autos, which have been slapped with a 25% tariff. The former trade official pointed out that steel and autos are seen as critical to U.S. security and warned that slashing tariffs for one ally would open the floodgates for others. He nonetheless hinted that greater access for American agricultural products like rice and beef into the Korean market might help Seoul's case. The defense ministries of South Korea and the U.S. have chosen the engine of the CH-47 Chinook heavy-lift helicopter for a maintenance, repair and overhaul project, also known as MRO. The choice was made during a regular Logistics Cooperation Committee meeting here in capital Seoul this past Tuesday. The MRO for the American helicopter's engine will be carried out in South Korea. Hanwha Aerospace is expected to undertake the task, as it is the only domestic company that has the experience in maintaining this type of engine. The death toll from last week's torrential rain has risen yet again. Our Moon Hye-ryun has the latest.
At least 23 people have died following the heavy rains that swept across South Korea last week, with the death toll continuing to rise as search and rescue operations press on. 2 more bodies were recovered on Wednesday morning, one in Gapyeong-gun County, Gyeonggi Province, and another in Sancheong-gun County, Gyeongsangnam-do Province, where 13 fatalities have been confirmed. Authorities have identified the body found in Gapyeong as one of the individuals previously reported missing. The other remains unidentified, bringing the current number of missing people still unaccounted for to 6. Search efforts are ongoing in Sancheong, where a fire department official said that while receding water levels have improved conditions slightly, the search remains challenging due to limited equipment access, forcing crews to rely heavily on manual inspections. In Gapyeong, search teams involving more than 700 personnel continue, but have been prolonged due to rapid water currents. Meanwhile, residents in the area are grappling with the aftermath of the torrential rains and landslides that devastated homes, businesses and farmlands.
The cowshed was completely flooded. We got a warning from the village center telling us to evacuate, but with the cows here, we couldn't leave. It was heartbreaking.
Nearly 2 million livestock died due to the heavy rains since last Wednesday, while nearly 3 hectares of crops were destroyed. Many returned to find their properties unrecognizable. Buildings reduced to rubble, interiors buried under layers of mud, and entire crops destroyed.
The damage is just overwhelming. The water's been cut off, so there's nothing we can do. There's no electricity, no running water.
As the nation continues to reel from the destruction, rescue crews remain in a race against time, working around the clock to locate the missing and support recovery efforts. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Also, on the local front, more babies were born and more marriages were noted in May, both extending months of consecutive rises. Our Kim Do-yeon has details.
South Korea recorded an increase in birth for the 11th consecutive month in May amid a nationwide policy push and delayed marriages during the pandemic leading to births. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the number of babies born in May rose 3.8% on year to 20,309, marking the fastest growth for that month in 14 years, but the pace of increase has started to narrow. Looking at the year up to May, the total number of babies stands at 106,048, up 6.9% compared to the same period last year. This is the fastest growth rate recorded since 1981, when data started being collected. Statistics Korea is showing cautious optimism amid the country's struggle with a demographic crisis.
The rise in marriages has played a role, along with an increase in the number of women entering their early 30s, a key childbearing age group. There's also been a gradual shift toward a more positive perception of childbirth.
In fact, for 14 straight months, marriages have been going up. May this year had 6.7% more marriages than last year. On the other hand, there are concerns that this is only because of the low point from the COVID era and delayed marriages, especially considering that the rising rate has been getting smaller.
So while the number of births is rising, what's important to note is that this doesn't necessarily signal a rebound in the fertility rate. It's not driven by structural or fundamental changes, and that's reflected in the fact that the year-on-year growth is gradually slowing.
The fertility rate right now stands at 0.75, meaning the population is still shrinking. Some experts do believe the rate will go up with this trend, but a more long-term plan is necessary to bring the rate up to a healthy level, with policies to push marriages and births through financial support having limited impact. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the outlook on housing prices here in the country has declined tangibly. According to the Bank of Korea, the housing price forecast index for July stood at 109, down 11 points on month. Now, while the index remains higher than the long-term average of 107, its reading for this month is the largest monthly decline in 3 years and reflects a substantial fall in the number of people who believe home prices will rise over the next year. Now, bank officials are linking this latest finding to the recent implementation of real estate loan regulation by the Lee Jae-myung administration. The National Gambling Control Commission has made public its 2024 statistics report on speculative industries as part of efforts to crack down on illegal gambling. According to the report released today, on-site monitoring activities targeting illegal gambling operations have tripled on year, demonstrating the government's commitment to creating a safer and more responsible social environment. Just a few footsteps away from today's bustling Seoul Station stands its 100-year-old counterpart, which has now been transformed into a space for art. Our Park Hyo-bin was there.
Once a place of departures, the station now offers a different kind of arrival. The exhibition Our Enchanting Paradise brings together 50 works by 21 Korean artists, featuring sculpture, media art, virtual reality, and installations, all presented inside the century-old former Seoul Station, now reborn as Culture Station Seoul 284.
This grand hall once echoed with the train whistle and footsteps. Now, a century later, it's filled with sounds of art and imagination.
Curators say the idea of paradise wasn't drawn from distant utopias, but from the very emotions this place once held: anticipation, hope, and relief.
The old Seoul Station represents both departures and arrivals. We wanted to show that paradise isn't one fixed idea. It's a journey each of us makes from our own place, in our own way.
In the main hall, once the heart of the station, a large-scale digital work by Hwang Se-jin reimagines a traditional Korean landscape painting, blurring the line between memory and illusion.
I was surprised by how diverse and unexpected the artworks were. The media art in the main hall really left an impression.
Do Jina's evolutionary chimera blinks and responds like a real person. Her AI-powered sculpture with human eyes and voice challenges the boundaries between life and machine, reminding us that in an age where nature and technology blur, we are called to rethink what paradise truly means.
Yeah, we think the exhibition is nice, and we like the mix of old things with new and modern things.
For me, it was the talking face downstairs with the moving eyes. It was like something new and different.
In a station once filled with departures and returns, art now fills in with meaning. In its century of change, it offers not only history, but also a moment of reflection through art. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
In our interview segment today, we sit down with Asia's first ever bobsleigh Olympic medalist, who is now seeking to write a fresh chapter in sports diplomacy for South Korea. Our Park Go-nu files this report.
Legendary Korean bobsleigher Won Yoon-jong appeared confident and full of anticipation after being named one of the final 11 candidates for membership of the IOC Athletes Commission last month.
Those candidates are role models in their own sports and have significant influence. So it's truly meaningful to be named among them.
If elected in the athletes' vote at the 2026 Winter Games, Won would become Korea's first winter sports athlete to hold a seat on the IOC Athletes Commission. Then he'd be able to act as a bridge between the IOC and athletes to listen to them and make sure they're represented throughout his 8-year term. Won says his own experience as an athlete has shaped how he hopes to serve.
If elected, I want to connect with athletes everywhere and speak with them freely. I've seen athletes struggling when transitioning after retirement. I want to support them through that phase and help address mental health concerns too. I also want to eradicate doping and protect clean athletes.
With climate change threatening the future of winter sports, Won says environmental advocacy should also be part of the job.
Athletes have a big influence on the public. If they take the lead in environmental campaigns, it can raise awareness and help preserve both the planet and winter sports.
But the road won't be easy. Won says he's ready to walk thousands of steps, literally, to meet athletes during the Olympics with sincerity. For the legendary bobsleigh athlete, challenge is nothing new, as it's been the driving force behind every milestone in his journey.
So what does challenge mean to you on a personal level? And as a person, Won Yoon-jong, what are your personal goals?
Challenge means growth and change to me. When I tried to become a bobsleigh athlete, it was a challenge, and I made it. I tried to get the medal, and it was a huge challenge for me whole my life. But yeah, I did it. I think there are lots of challenges if I want to get good outcomes. So I believe that I can be a better person through challenges.
No break until the end. With that mindset, Won says he'll keep racing forward just like on the bobsleigh track, toward what could be a new milestone for Korean sports diplomacy. Park Go-nu, Arirang News, Pyeongchang.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. The United States has announced that it will pull out of the United Nations Cultural and Educational Agency, UNESCO, once again, as part of President Donald Trump's efforts to withdraw from international institutions. A White House spokesperson announced on Tuesday that the withdrawal will take effect in December 2026, adding that the country's continued participation in the agency is not in its national interest. U.S. officials criticized UNESCO's agenda, highlighting its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and its 2011 acceptance of Palestine as misaligned with U.S. values. This marks the third U.S. departure following exits in 1984 under the Reagan administration and 2017 under Trump, with the U.S. then rejoining in 2003 and 2023 respectively. U.S. financial contributions currently represent approximately 8% of UNESCO's budget, down from over 20% previously. UNESCO's Director General Audrey Azoulay expressed deep regret, but emphasized that the agency is prepared both financially and operationally. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan warned on Tuesday that Turkey will directly intervene to stop any attempt to fragment Syria or allow militants to gain autonomy. Fidan addressed reporters in Ankara at a joint news conference after recent clashes between the Druze and Bedouin groups in the city of Sueda. He also accused Israel of seeking to destabilize Syria and push for separatism in the south. The minister specifically warned Kurdish groups that any moves toward autonomy or independence would be seen as a big strategic catastrophe and a direct threat to Turkey's national security. Following a push by U.S. President Donald Trump, Coca-Cola announced on Tuesday that it will introduce a new version of its flagship product in the U.S. this fall, sweetened with domestic sugarcane. CEO James Quincy confirmed that to align with consumer demand, Coca-Cola will launch a U.S. cane sugar variant this fall, following Trump's appeal for real cane sugar instead of corn syrup. The new product will complement the core recipe rather than replacing the classic formulation. Coca-Cola also reported robust second-quarter profits, beating estimates for quarterly results. The company's comparable revenue beat estimates by increasing 2.5% in the 3 months up to June 27th. In the United Kingdom, Ozzy Osbourne, the legendary frontman of Black Sabbath, known as the Prince of Darkness, died on Tuesday at the age of 76. No immediate cause was given, though he had been battling Parkinson's disease since 2020. His final performance took place only recently on July 5th at Villa Park Stadium in his hometown of Birmingham, with the proceeds donated to organizations such as Parkinson's UK. Over his 5-decade career with Black Sabbath and as a solo artist, Ozzy Osbourne sold more than 100 million records and earned a revered place in rock history. Tributes poured in worldwide, with Elton John calling him a true legend. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
The summer heat is warming up the whole country. Heat wave warnings have been issued across the country except for some inland areas of Gangwon-do and have been extended in Gyeongju Province, Chungcheongnam-do Province, and most of the south. Today, the daytime temperature in Seoul rose to 33 degrees Celsius, Gyeongsan 37 degrees, and the temperatures in most regions fell closer to 35 degrees. It will get hotter and hotter through the rest of the week. Tomorrow, the daytime temperature in Seoul will rise to 34 degrees, and on Friday and Saturday, it will rise to 36 degrees. Tomorrow morning, most areas will start off at around 25 degrees. Highs will move up to 35 degrees in Daejeon, 36 degrees in Gwangju and Daegu. Even at night, the heat will not cool down, and the tropical nights will continue. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.